Welcome to the REI Agent, a holistic approach to life through real estate. I'm Mattias, an agent and investor.
And I'm Erica, a licensed therapist.
Join us as we interview guests that also strive to live bold and fulfilled lives through business and real estate investing.
Tune in every week for interviews with real estate agents and investors.
Ready to level up?
Let's do it.
Welcome back to the REI Agent. We had a great conversation with Chris, and we'll get into that here in a moment. But one of the topics we discussed and one of the things that we kind of wanted to talk a little bit more about was essentially the platinum rule, which most people have heard of, the golden rule, which is do unto others as you would have them do to you. Did I get it?
Nailed it.
But really, I think what we're finding, I think there's been a lot of books written kind of around this topic, but what we really should be striving towards is to do to others what they would want, how they want to be treated, right? You should focus on that, which I know that, for example, love languages for our marriages is one of the popular things here recently. I don't know how recent that book is, but it feels like that's been a more recent trend to understand what it is that you want and how I can express my love to you, that you feel it, and vice versa. Yeah. And I think that's definitely something that is important to consider as well with your business. He talked about really going into a niche and understanding who you are selling to and understanding your niche, and then, giving them information, giving them social media content, giving them, marketing that really edifies them, things that just speak to them, because often we are just putting out things that don't really give them any value. It gets us out there. It says, hey, look at me, I'm successful, whatever, but it doesn't really actually speak to them. And I think that this is a parallel too, in just having good relationships in your house. So my love language would be like words of affirmation primarily, right?
Which is the one that I'm the worst at.
We are a happy married couple.
I think my natural way of loving people is acts of service.
Which is your love language, right?
Right. But what I'm saying is it's not the way you receive love necessarily. And so it's takes a lot of intentionality for me to remember to tell you the things that I appreciate about you.
Yeah. And I think that it also is something that acts of service is also something that I don't always do naturally. I think I could definitely do better than that. I know that, for example, bringing you coffee in the morning is like really big. It's a great start to the day. That's really something I should work at trying to do every morning.
I like that.
See, it works. And but one of the things that we had talked about too is like, your kids and kind of showing up for them and how do they feel that they are loved. And the immediate thing that came to my mind is I had this realization with one of our kids is that they like to every once in a while kind of get in my face and annoy me. And it might be an age thing. I'm not sure exactly if that'll be something that they'll grow out of. But they like to, kind of get in my face, like kind of do things that will frustrate me. And when I'm really stressed out in work mode and all that stuff, it's really hard to see through and not just get frustrated. But when I'm in a good place, and I'm going to say it here, I'm not always in a good place. I can sense, I can realize, okay, they want to engage with me. They want to interact with me. And so if I just turn it around and just start tickling them and wrestling with them, that's exactly what they want. And it just makes it a lot of fun. It takes that moment of frustration into like a really playful, fun thing that I enjoy as well then too. But it's really hard when I'm not in the right mind space to understand what they're asking for, basically.
Yeah. And they have not they have not learned to ask for it in an appropriate way yet either.
Yeah.
So, and they know that one way to get your attention very quickly is to mess with your technology.
Yeah.
And that gets your attention real fast.
We have a lock in this room. Nobody's allowed in here. Yeah.
Yeah. Each of our kids seems to feel loved in a very different way because our another one of our kids just loves to be like cuddled and held.
Yeah.
Which that one is a little bit harder for me because I'm not somebody who sits very often because I'm often up doing a lot of things, but they just want to be on someone's lap or held on the couch. And so that takes some, I have to think and stop and think about needing to just stop what I'm doing, even though it's not done, and sitting and holding them for a while.
Yeah, actually this morning, they were not moving very fast and trying to hide and avoid getting into the car to go to school, doing everything they can to basically, delay the process. And I saw it, we've had this, we've done this dance many times. And I told them, hey, look, this is going to end with me getting really frustrated because we're late and we're trying to move, and we're trying to do things. And then you're going to end up getting really frustrated and you're going to get really sad. Can we just turn this around and try to, work together to get to what we have to do? Well, that didn't happen. Mm-hmm. And it ended up happening that, she was in tears. I was frustrated. And when we were in the car, we just kind of took a moment. We both kind of collected ourselves, honestly. And then I just kind of, talked to her about it. Like, just said, hey, this is kind of what I saw happening. Can we realize that when we're going down this path, like we have to go to school, like we can't not do this. So like, that's not really an option. Can we kind of work together? I don't know if she got any of that, but the point of all I was trying to just say is that I knew then that she needed to be held and be comforted in that way. And so I carried her into the school, and she just kind of snuggled up on me. And after, just the short walk, after we got that cuddling, whatever done, she kind of was just her normal self. Then she kind of was able to reset. Like, it took a little bit of time alone to kind of suck her thumb and get comforted. And then that together was important. And meanwhile, the youngest was just kind of trudging along by himself without a care in the world. But and he was doing vocal exercises too on the way in. That was funny. Mm-hmm. I spent the morning showing the kids some vocal exercises and doing scales, which they found very amusing today. But I got a feeling that that's not going to, be amusing if I do it every morning. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's kind of the theme I wanted to talk about a little bit. It's important to think about what the other person wants, and that's hard. It's not easy to always be able to be in that mind space.
Yeah. Well, yesterday at dinner, I forget which child it was, but one of them said for the first time, I think, "Oh, they're your favorite."
Oh, I did hear that. Yeah.
I hadn't heard that, and I was actually surprised it took this long for that comment to come out. Mm-hmm. Because we were talking a little bit about equity is not equality, and how just different people need different things, and not everybody always gets the exact same thing. And so it's a tough balance. I was also called the worst human being in our family last night by one of the kids. Same one that needed the cuddles. So she must have just been going through something. And
well, they always get jealous too, because our other daughter was home sick for a couple of days. So I think that sometimes comes out in this behavior if they're jealous. Mm-hmm. But I said, why don't you tell her that, Dad can come in and finish bedtime? And I'm sure she'd be like, no, you stay, please. Because that is always the default. Mom is better than Dad. But yeah, what can I do?
I don't know. It's tough. It's hard too to remember how each person receives love too, because everybody's different. There's 5 of us in our family, and then we have an anxious dog. And so like,
yeah,
taking care of everybody and making sure everybody feels loved and valued is it just takes some extra work. You got to be on your game.
It's a full-time job. Mm-hmm. You always got to be on.
And you can't just take care of your kids. You got to take care of your spouse too.
And your dog.
And your dog.
Give him his Prozac or whatever he takes. Anyway, we have a really great guest here. Chris is currently out of Florida, but has had a big career of training agents, being an agent, training agents, being now a coach for agents and other business owners. Chris was a lot of fun to talk to. He was an authentic, genuine person. And I am afraid to say his last name, but I do say it correctly as soon as the real interview with him comes on. So I'm just going to say Chris. Enjoy this conversation with Chris. Welcome back to the REI Agent. We are here with Chris Abazis. Chris, thanks so much for joining us. I got it right.
You did great being here. Thanks, Mattias.
Hey, we both got names right. Let's go. This is off to a good start.
That's right.
Chris, your career has evolved over the years, but tell us a little bit. Let's get started with kind of the origin story. How did you get into real estate?
So I was going to school in Manhattan and from Long Island, and they shut down our student housing. We had to move to Queens, and I was always interested in real estate as an investment vehicle. I never kind of fancied myself a salesperson, but I understood it as an investment. And we moved to Queens and hired a real estate agent. I think I paid him $3,000 to find us a place. He showed us 2 places in one building. At the same time, I was put on academic probation with college, so I said maybe I'll get my real estate license until I figure out what I want to be when I grow up. It's right around 9/11 happened.
Oh, wow.
So it was like the market was kind of going crazy. I got licensed and I was really good at it. I was the rookie of the year, working mostly with buyers. The interest rates were so low at the time at 7%. I don't know if you remember if you were in it that time, right? Then there was a big buying frenzy. Everyone could get a loan. It was a rise of that subprime market. Then my 3rd year, I learned how to list. That was my first 6-figure year. And I was 24 and all my friends were graduating from college with masters in business and not able to find jobs and stuff. So I said, I guess I'm going to do this when I grow up. I guess this is what I'm doing. And I bought my first house. Then I got into leadership in 2009, out of sales and into leadership. The opportunity presented itself in 2007, but I didn't take it. Like most kind of people having real estate businesses don't want to get into that world.
Yeah.
But 2009 in a down market, I did it. And my job was to kind of recruit, develop, and train and fill a 6,000 square foot office. And I did it. And over the next 6 years, I'd recruited over 1,000 agents, recruited, trained, and coached them, and launched another 2 offices. So I had ownership in 3 different offices. And I just fell in love with people development, helping agents build their businesses, have better lives. I started my company, Dream Key Consulting, to do that. I was doing it on the side. I started to speak and coach agents. And then I kind of got out of office leadership and just started doing that full time. And that's here I am. I created a job for myself, I guess. So I just kind of travel around, get to talk to people, have high level conversations all day. And that's how I built my business. And also, getting into real estate investing and things like that. Kind of got my hand in a lot of stuff. So that's pretty much a short story of how I ended up where I am.
Yeah, that is a great synopsis. You flowed right through that.
I have that conversation a lot.
Yeah. I bet you do. I was also curious too, if you go back to where you were talking about, you were in college on academic probation and got your real estate license. Can you walk us through too what was happening on the life side of things as you moved through the career progression that you just mentioned?
It was interesting, in college, I never really, I love to learn stuff, but I wasn't much of a student. So it's funny how in my adult life, when we started to want to learn things, and in college, I always said I was an intro class major. I took everything from political science to anthropology, psychology, sociology, film, and media. And I was really kind of attracted to all these things. I'm like, what the heck am I going to do with all this? I didn't know until later that it was going to kind of be super helpful for me to have all these things now in my life. But it was, I was always kind of never one. I was in punk rock bands when I was a kid, and I had lyrics that said I'd rather die than wear a suit and tie. And here I was in my early 20s with a suit and tie on, looking in the mirror, laughing at myself. Man, what are you doing? But my socks didn't match, so I was still punk rock. And it was kind of interesting. I really fell in love with helping people, and I kind of was like, oh, salespeople. But I kind of approached it in the way of, man, I'm helping people. I'm helping people that thought they could never own a house. And at the time, nobody wanted to work with first-time home buyers, and I really loved working with them. They were like me, and it was fun. Then kind of getting into listings, it was like, all the listing agents are the same. And then I was a little bit more lighthearted. I was professional. I was an expert. I knew what I was doing. I had checked all the boxes for a top agent, but I was nice to people and I wasn't pushy. And, I talked to people like they were humans, which ended up helping me when I had my office to recruit agents. Thank goodness I was nice to everybody. Right. So, and that's, personally, it was just kind of feeling my way around a dark room and, think kind of, it wasn't until I got into learning stuff and reading books and leadership training that I started being like more on purpose about planning my life and designing that the way I wanted it. And otherwise it was just kind of happening to me. And I was just always like, well, I guess this is what I'm going to do. And you have to be, I think, learning early in life. And I try to teach my kids this, every time you're saying yes to something, you're saying no to something else. And you got to be careful. If you don't have a plan, somebody else might plan your life for you. You might not like where you end up. And I don't know if you guys experience this, but when I was in college and like when I was young, kind of seeing all these people older than me that were in jobs that they hated, in relationships that they didn't enjoy, they no longer enjoyed. And they were like, whose life am I living? What am I doing? So I just didn't want to kind of follow that path. And then I wanted to share that same experience with all the other business owners I came in contact with, the real estate agents and everybody. Listen, you don't have to be forced to live this life you don't want.
It's I identify with so much what you just said. I was also into punk music in high school, played some music as well. And I've often said, like, man, my high school self would be so ashamed of me. I mean, I'm not wearing a suit right now.
Yeah.
But it's kind of that like independent spirit, I think, that is probably what drew us both to real estate. And I think it's like, being your own boss. And so in some ways, we're kind of the man, the man that we were trying to stick it to is kind of who we became. But at the same time, we're also like, free to kind of pursue what we want. And that's probably ultimately at least what I was pursuing, or how that energy got channeled into something productive, like, being in real estate.
Yeah, but I think we're disrupting it from internally, right? Because you kind of get there and you're like, the world needs people like us in this world, and I think that's and that's who runs the world. I think when you get older, you realize it's like we come from this education system where we're just kind of passive followers, and we're sitting in alphabetical order, and everybody learn how to do this. And if you're not good at something, let's give you extra help there to bring you up to being average, rather than focusing on strengths and what makes us different. And I think that's really, I think that's when people figure that out and find a world where they can, be authentic and live in that with freedom and, freedom of personal expression and all that stuff. That's when life is really delicious, right?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Here we are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that reminds me. Just this week, Mattias went to some kind of a meeting. You have to tell me which one this was, but you had to give a speech impromptu. And you were saying, everybody else was in blazers, but I was dressed kind of like I normally dress, just in your business casual. Yeah. But you liked that. You ended up saying, I was glad that I was able to just like speak and say what I wanted to say, and I could wear what I normally wear, and I didn't have to put on a front.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I feel like not having to necessarily like looking good, like not being a slob necessarily, but having your own kind of flavor to what you're wearing, what you're doing, and kind of who you are, being true to it, and then backing up that you belong here by you get up and give a little speech because you're the president of the association that was hosting an event, and so that's where that all came from. But yeah, at first it was kind of like, well, I'm definitely underdressed when I looked around the room. I was like, you know what? I don't want to be that person in a blazer that is just kind of matching what everybody else is doing.
Yeah, that's and I think it's when you get to a certain level, and when you're like that disruptor, people start to look to you, and that's when you're setting trends. And then the next meeting you go to, somebody's going to be wearing a t-shirt with a blazer or something, so it's it's funny. I mean, I'll wear this very shirt at a speaking engagement. That's my thing. I always say it's in my bio on my slides. I'm like, I wear t-shirts with suits, so I'll wear jeans with a t-shirt that says something funny, or with a jacket, and it's people dig it. But there was a time in my career when I was really young, 21 years old, and I wore a suit and tie, and I started getting custom suits and cufflinks, and I looked the part, man. But it was when you got into a conversation with me, that's where the difference maker was. But then look at, Steve Jobs. Nobody ever says, hey, that guy wears a black t-shirt everywhere he goes. He's Steve Jobs,
Right.
He doesn't need to roll up with his Armani suit, does he?
No, absolutely not. No, that's true. And I think that's also true for me. When I started real estate, I definitely dressed to the nines, and, I was like 24, 25. I forget exactly how old I was, but, when I started, I was young, not as young as you, but you have to kind of feel like you gotta show up and feel like you could be worth the thousands of dollars you're going to get paid to help this person in the biggest transaction of their lives. So yeah, I definitely went through that phase too.
That's what it is.
So, Chris, I found your list of discernment questions that you often use to make a decision, and I was looking through those, and it was a post that you had made recently, and you were talking about giving it to your daughter too, and helping her work through some decisions, maybe about college or as she goes into college. And I was just curious how often you pull out that list, just on the day to day.
These kind of it's funny because these are questions. This was like some things you just do by accident, and once in a while, it was when you have to tell somebody else about it or teach it. That's the first time that you kind of get them on paper. So this is something that I was talking to one of my clients, and I just was like, hey, here's how I make decisions. Here's my filtering questions, and we went through it. And he's like, wow, that's really good stuff. You should write this stuff down. He's a playwright, so very different industries, and so then I just wrote them down, and when I wrote them down, I shared them with my. I was talking to my daughter. She just started college in Orlando, and I shared. I was like, hey, this is very helpful for someone today, and I think they'd be helpful for you. And it just kept popping up after I did it. So it's kind of like what you focus on expands. But how often am I doing that? I'm using a version of one of those questions probably on a daily basis. And even if you don't pay attention to them, these are kind of just things that are always running in my subconscious, filtering in the background. Like, is this in alignment with who I am and what I'm doing? And am I contributing to the world? I mean, even something so small as to make a social media post, in a world where attention is kind of the new drug of choice. Everyone's screaming, look at me and look at what I'm doing. And particularly, that's what I like about you guys, is you guys are putting stuff out there that's valuable to the people that are watching it, not just kind of screaming, look at me, which is rare. I guess we could say it's like the minority. And that's even with that stuff, is this how am I, is this who I am? Am I contributing? Am I making a difference? And that's just always running in the background. So how often am I pulling out the list of those 6 questions and using all of them? It's probably rare, but in some version of them all the time. It's just constantly how I approach things.
I printed them out because I'd like to use them with my conversations with clients in session too. Because even recently, like a big conversation has been holiday stress and the pressure of feeling joyful during the holidays, when really there is a lot of pressure to attend all these social events and go to the school stuff and bring everybody food. And then there's also a lot of grief usually around the holidays. And so a lot of our conversations have focused on, are the decisions you're making and the things you're saying yes to this season, are they aligned with your values and what's important to your family and what's going to bring you the most joy and quality time together? And so your questions are perfect. So I might borrow those, if that's okay with you.
Well, of course, I put them out there. They're available to everybody. That's what I do. So yeah, I'm glad you got value from them. So that makes it worth it putting it out there. Just if you get value from it yourself and share it with your clients, it's awesome.
Yeah, they're great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's sad to hear about the holidays and people that are stressed out about it, right? It's like, you run into those people that they have all this stuff. They make it so that's a terrible thing. It should be filled with joy. But that's a personal decision, I guess, too, right?
Yeah, I know. It's tough to figure out what it is that actually helps you feel joy, because there's things that I think the world around us creates that say it's going to create joy, and then people do them and they're like, well, now I just feel stressed.
Yep.
We've got to figure it out.
Yep. Consumerism.
Yep.
Yeah. One of the things you said there about making content, doing things that are valuable to the audience, as opposed to just look at me. I think I see a lot of agents doing, the look at me kind of posts all the time, and that's really all they know how to do. Do you have any suggestions for people that are looking to make content that, I think that is definitely a area that can be hard. And I think it is usually the go-to, like, under contract, just sold, pictures of your clients, at the closing table, which they probably don't want to have that picture taken.
Yeah, well, it's I would say that's the low-hanging fruit, and it's real easy to do that stuff. And there's so much training out there. And I'm not a social media person, so but I do it, but it's not something I could focus more on it. But I think my advice, I was just on the road. Where was I? I was in Chicago taught Get Niche or Die Trying, where I talk about niching down, actually making your world bigger by really figuring out who your client is, who are you serving. And it's like we have like Sarasota Sandy on the west coast of Florida. She's real clear on who her clients are. She's like C-level executives from the Northeast. They buy in these 4 different communities. They like red wine, they like golf, they like boating and yachting. So she blogs and she puts videos out there that are super specific to that clientele, and that happened for her by accident. Now, if that's not going to happen for an agent by accident, I have an exercise, and I could share like a worksheet, like on identifying your niche, and it starts with first who you are. What's unique about me? What am I uniquely able to bring out to the world? And what am I in a great position to be able to teach someone else how to do in what I'm doing? And it's like starting from that place, you'll figure out who you are, what I'm offering, being real clear about that, and you'll start attracting the people that are meant to work with you. And we're in an experience economy now. It's like it used to be. It was, there was goods and then services. When you're competing with goods and raw materials, it's just who's the cheapest, right? Supply and demand, getting it out there to market. Now we're in services. It's like, okay, we're customizing a good that now becomes a service. Many people in the real estate industry will say we're in the service industry. But now there's a higher level, and even after quarantine happened, we're seeing all these retail stores go under, all these things happen. What's opening up? Experiential places, comedy clubs, axe throwing places, restaurants, like, things to go out there and do. It's an experience economy, and people will want to work with you because the experience that you provide above anything else. And so that's where I'm trying to arrive at with the people that I work with is, what experience are you creating for people? I mean, you could stay at the Holiday Inn or you could stay at the Ritz-Carlton. It's a different experience, and people that are paying the Ritz-Carlton what they're paying for, and what they're loyal to is that experience. So that's what I would tell people. Really figure that out, and then put content out that's relevant to them. I mean, look, I'm glad you're doing an open house in San Diego, but that's not relevant to me at all. I mean, it's cool to see it and stuff, but I think a lot of agents, they're just in this kind of cycle of, I won this award, I have this listing, I have this open house, and make it fun. So I'm lighthearted. I like humor and comedy. So I'll put things out there that are funny and silly. And some people think I'm ridiculous, and that's okay. But that's not the person I'm meant to work with. And look, if you're all about the numbers and the data, and you're really good at that, put that stuff out there, and you're going to attract the people that appreciate that. If you're not good at it, don't try to do the stuff you're not good at, and just go out there, be yourself, figure out who your client is, and then make stuff that's going to edify them directly. That's the biggest thing I think most business people are missing.
Yeah. No, I love that. It's really, again, if you keep it in mind, focusing on who you are serving, focus on what they want, focus on what gives them value. And what you're talking about is really more clearly defining who that is.
Exactly.
Which makes a ton of sense. And again, I don't think that people actually care that you got a house under contract. And the person, whoever you're targeting, unless, I don't really know what demographic of people would actually appreciate that or really care.
It's other agents. You're flossing for other agents. You're saying, look what I'm doing. They're like, Mattias is busy again,
And
but
they don't even like it. They're just,
there's a comedian, Tom Papa. He said, social media is just everybody showing you how great their life is through a filter to make you feel crappy about yours. Yeah. But they're not showing you. They're saying, look at us by the Eiffel Tower. They're not showing you when, dad had some bad food and he was on the toilet bowl for a couple of days. I'm not showing you that, but and it's like, that's what it is. And I see people actually going through, when I'm in groups of people and I see them looking at people's social media and they're like, look at this one, look at that one. And I'm like, why these are friends of yours? Why are you so angry at them because they're on vacation? She got another listing again. Why don't you go get some listings? Why are you mad? Just be happy for people.
Yeah, totally. And that's a good example of something that people do want would be listings. So you can say just listed because you are A, marketing your property that you were trying to sell, and B, your people that on your social media are probably curious about new houses and want to check them out. So that's like
exactly. My strategy for new listings, I love for a new listing, instead of just throwing a post out there, do a paid ad, choose your target market, expose it to only people looking in the area, that demographic, do something fun, do a fun video around it with a lead capture mechanism, like a lead magnet, build your database, then drip on them, so that's kind of more effective for a real estate salesperson than just throwing it out there and saying, come to my open house. Look what I listed. Look, it's all evidence of success. It's good. It's like just listed postcards. I used to do those in the neighborhood. So if you can figure out how to just get it in front of people, that'll be valuable. And there's like on Facebook, I used to teach a class on setting up lists. People didn't know you could set up lists with just, set up. You can almost use it as like a CRM and just, I want to post this just to these people or just to these people, or there's ways you can do it, but it's just, it's a crowded space, isn't it? And you really got to sift, you got to pan for gold to really find the good stuff.
Yeah. I'm curious about when you were in the recruiting phase. Now, were teams a thing at this time at all, or
yeah? So I built my office.
Your role.
It's with teams. I built my office with teams because the agents, I was really there was agents that hit a ceiling. Good agents, they either didn't have a team and they were ready to start hiring people, or there were small brokerages or agents with teams that were kind of dysfunctional. So that's how I kind of built my company. And I learned all about team structure and organizational structure and how to do this stuff, and was able to help agents grow their teams into businesses. And that was kind of my bread and butter for recruiting, which then actually became a majority of my coaching clients in real estate. But teams were just starting to be a thing, and I was with KW offices. So those KW offices were really, kind of pushing team stuff. I had come from a RE/MAX, and RE/MAX, they fostered teams too, but they kind of didn't have this stuff. Like they were just kind of like, hey, go build teams, but they didn't teach you how to do it really at the time. And so that was kind of a big thing in the market that was super valuable as far as education is concerned. Because what do you tell a top agent that knows everything? I know everything. It's like you can't. So I don't need to make any more money or do any more business. But you're working 70 hours a week. You want to do it in 30. We've got a way for you to do that. And that was a big thing for me, because it's just kind of I always say I'm a leverage coach. System, tools, and people. Just let's figure out how to do it. Which, like you guys have figured out now. You said, we're getting to the point where we just got to show up. We look at our calendar, we show up and record, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's a big deal, and I think people are just trying to do too much, especially that entrepreneurial spirit. You think nobody can do it like you can do it, which we know is not true.
Yeah, there's multiple angles there. I think that there are definitely the people that can let go of the control of having to do everything themselves. And then there's just also the fear of, hiring somebody. I'm gonna have to pay them, that things get slow sometimes. There's a lot of different,
it's a big deal.
Barriers.
A lot of responsibility. There's also a lot of opportunity for you to help someone, change it. Like somebody once told me that if I was capable of building an empire, I had a social responsibility to do it, because I can create opportunities for other people. And I think we've all met that Uber driver or that Starbucks barista that had a great idea that we're like, man, you'd be a great salesperson, or you've got a great idea for a new technology or something. And there's so much out there that we'll never hear about. So many inventions, so many great music, so much art, right? We'll never hear about it because people just never go for it. And so there's that thing too with, I had agents like, hey, what was your goal? And they're like, oh, someday I want to own a restaurant. Well, awesome. I'm going to help you have the best real estate business possible. And my goal is to get you to be able to be a restaurant owner, because that's your dream. And maybe we'll invest in it together. And that was kind of counterintuitive for most people in the recruiting game that didn't want people to leave them. Right. I wanted to be the vehicle that helped people build their dream. And it worked out for me in the long run. So I even had staff members that I gave to agent teams, like a receptionist that had a growth opportunity with an agent's team to be their COO or their admin. And, one particular, I'm thinking she's still there. And every year she sends me like a card and a gift and thanks. Oh, thank you for changing my life. And I'm like, well, that's cool. That's why we do it.
It's got to feel great.
It is. That's, that's why we do it, but a lot of people around me were, oh, you should be a little bit more greedy, a little bit more shrewd. Only if you were this, only with that. And I'm like, no, I'm kind of okay with just doing things the way that I am. And I have a low economic drive, but the economics come with everything else. So now the proof is in the pudding, because I always said, it's like I sleep well at night. I love what I do, and everything's good.
Yeah, it's so nice to have a cheerleader like you, because it feels scary to step away from like a W-2 with benefits.
It is.
And it's that can feel hard to do on your own, but if you have somebody behind you encouraging you to do that, man, that would make such a difference. Like it was tough for me to leave my W-2 and start my own private practice. And I did it because I was drowning, trying to do a full-time job with 2 kids. And
well, at what point did you do them both at the same time? And at what point did you kind of pull the plug on that W-2?
Well, it was mid-COVID, so it was 2020, and that was part of what forced me into it. And no, I stopped my W-2. It was a Monday to Friday job, very inflexible hours, because it was sessions with clients from 9 to 5, and had 2 little kids. And it was August. I think it was in June that I was like, I just can't do this. I have to do a part-time work, especially with the real estate hours being evenings and weekends mostly. And so end of August, I left my job. Beginning of September, I started my private practice. And I remember giving myself like a couple of months to build up my caseload, but I had been working in the community long enough that it took 2 weeks, and I was full with a wait list and have been ever since.
That's awesome.
And so it ended up fine, but the anxiety leading up to it, and like, what if this doesn't work out? What if all the questions, And
nobody ever that you talk to, nobody's ever like so sure that ends up there. Everyone's got that story where they had some concern, some anxiety, and what ifs, and, imposter syndrome and fear of failure and fear of success and all that stuff. Nobody's exempt from it. I mean, I think people need to share those stories more often. There's so many people out there on stages like, I'm a billionaire real estate investor, and you could be too if you just buy my $400 program. And it's like nobody talks about the too often the little bit of a battle it is, and even listen. You see bands and musicians up there. You see people on stage or actors and actresses say, "Oh, it looks so easy where they were," but you weren't living in a basement apartment eating ramen noodles, sticking with it, knowing that this thing's going to work out for me. And I think we've all in the business world, we've all been there at some degree. And I mean, I've had it big and lost everything a couple of different times, and it's rough. I'm candid about those stories, and people are like, "Oh, how did you get a car repossessed? You were a CEO of a company. How'd you get a car repossessed? How'd you get an eviction notice and stuff?" And I'm like, well, things happen, and especially when you're committed to building a business. And how many times in life do we get offered some kind of easy button that we have to say no to? I'm getting recruited all the time for these leadership positions that sound real good, right? It's like hitting the easy button. You get like man, that'll sound good, but it'll be good for a year, and then I'll be annoyed, and I'll feel unfulfilled, and I'll want to start all over again. So staying the course and saying no to those things, it's important.
Yeah.
Chris, how do you feel about agents getting started? Do you think that it's better to burn the fleet and just jump right in, or like you kind of mentioned doing both for a while with Erica, and that's the approach I took.
Yeah,
I did a full-time job and real estate for a few years before I jumped in.
I was lucky. I was a DJ at the time, and so nights and weekends I could work and make a decent amount of money, like people in the service industry, like bartenders and servers and things like that. But is there a way to do it? I've hired people that it worked really well. I mean, I've hired everybody from police officers about to retire to school teachers and said, "Hey, I want to do real estate part-time." So creating a goal around it, I think, is important. So if you say, okay, well, I want to have my full-time job. Okay, well, would you like to go full-time in real estate? Is that your goal? Yes, I would. Well, what needs to happen in order for you to go full-time? And some people, it's like, if I can have $10,000 in the bank, or if I do 1 transaction, or if I do 10 transactions, they'll have some kind of target that's hittable. And now you can reverse engineer that and figure that out. Well, how much time can you dedicate to real estate? What's your business going to look like? And what's the fastest way to get you to those transactions? And it's different for everybody. And some people do it real well and transition out. Some people I've known stay with a part-time business and do 2 transactions a year forever. And some people pull the plug and jump right in. One kid I hired, he worked for the cable company, and he made about $110,000 a year. And he was a Chinese immigrant, and he said, he's called me Chief. He's like, "Chief, do you think I can make $100,000 this year in real estate in my first year?" And I said, "Michael, you can do it. My rookie of the year usually does about 60 or 70, and then they'll do 100 their second year." And he's like, "What do I need to do?" He's like, I'm quitting my job. He's like, "I'm going to do exactly what you need to do." And we started off, well, you talk to 10 people a day. That's a good start. And he's like, "What if I talk to 20? And he started to take listings. And I said, listings is the name of the game. And I would always put him in the office meeting and say, "Michael, tell everyone how you got this listing." He'd be like, "Well, I was so lucky. There was a big snowstorm and I couldn't get in contact with this FSBO. So I figured I would go to the house and they would be home." And I'm like, "Wait a second. You were lucky, but you went to the house during a snowstorm. That's not lucky.
That's
If you were in the snow, if you were watching Netflix, eating popcorn in your couch, and they knocked on your door by accident and gave you a listing, that's lucky. But he was always doing the things. And I think people that stay in the activities will have the success. And I think part of that kind of moving towards pleasure and away from pain, when you create pain in your life, usually actions we take now is to avoid some kind of future pain. I mean, sometimes you see that rock bottom and someone springs into action, but in coaching, we try to tap you into the possibility of a future pain because you got money saved up, you're making money now, you can relax, but what if that goes away? And what do you need to do now in order for that to happen? And we know real estate's very cyclical.
Yeah.
And, but I mean, I think I like it when I see someone committed to joining. And I think nowadays we're seeing more and more kids come out of college that are choosing it as an actual career choice, a viable career choice, where I think when I got into it, it was like, you know, people are like, well, I can't get a regular job, so I might as well sell real estate. Or, you know, I drive a yellow cab and I sell real estate on the side. I think if it was like a regular business where you had to take out a loan, like, so if it cost $50,000 to get into real estate and you had to do a business plan and go to a bank and get a loan, and you had to take that money, invest in some coaching and training and invest in some lead generation activities, and then you just did the activities, I think everybody would be good. It's a good business. But I think because it's so much flexibility, some people just don't show up. They don't do the activities that they need to do. And it sounds simple. If I find a person that needs a house and a person that has a house and I put them together, yay. I make 10 grand, whatever it is, you know. But it's when you get in there, there's other agents and there's other nuances, and it's not as easy. And every other person has a real estate license, and it's just, I think it's everyone's different. And some people, I know people that didn't hire part-time agents. Yeah. And I said I'm gonna hire them. However, it's going to kind of be with that caveat, just you got to do some stuff, but there's a plan for everybody. If you've got 10 hours a week to dedicate to it, you can do it. You can build a business.
Yeah, I think that was the clear thing. It's like, if you have that safety net of your full-time job, you can always fall back on. If you're holding it for that purpose, I think that's a very different thing than if you are simply, a means to an end. Because when I was going for this career, I wanted to. That was all I wanted. As I wanted to get into, be a full-time agent. We were paying off student loans. That was kind of the reason for getting a side hustle at first, that I wanted to make it a career, but also a reason not to just quit the job right away. But yeah, I was up every morning at 5. I worked at a high school and got done at like 2:33. So I was able to do afternoon showings and weekends and summers. So it worked really well for me overall at that initial phase. But then, were you on a team, or you
just got into it yourself?
I got into myself. I had a little bit of kind of a top agent that nurtured me more so later on when I really kind of got into it more full time. But yeah, so it was just me and myself, but a good company that really trained well and was supportive.
Yeah, that's important. That's good. You got it, and look at you now. You're doing it. And you guys invest now. You invest as well, and so you give some like investor tips and stuff, which is good because people don't know these things, the general public.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do feel like you have to be like very self-motivated.
Yeah.
Especially in the real estate business, because it's so individualized in some ways, and you have to keep pushing yourself and doing new things and doing things differently. Mm-hmm. And I think just as humans, we tend to like to be comfortable. And we don't love pain or discomfort, but growth also can't happen when you're comfortable. And so it does take a willingness to keep pushing yourself into places that don't feel great at first, knowing that it's going to feel good at some point.
That's, it's interesting. Jim Rohn says that content and ambition are kind of opposed, and that people that are content are rarely ambitious. So people that are ambitious are rarely content. But if we can figure out a way to experience both of those things at the same time, that's kind of the sweet spot of life. So I've dedicated my life to that. How can I be really happy with where I am and really excited about where I'm going, enough so that, I'm appreciating the moment, being present, but also kind of looking to stretch. And I think life's been a series of counterbalances. And sometimes you're super content and complacent and just kind of like, hey, I'm good with where I am. And sometimes you're just in growth mode. And it's okay just to kind of lean into those nuances, because people make themselves feel bad about things. Oh man, it's the middle of the afternoon and I'm playing golf, or I'm watching TV, or I'm out on a boat drinking margaritas, and they should all over themselves, right? Or or people are working from 8 a.m. to 9 at night, and they're saying, man, I shouldn't be doing this. I'm missing my kids' games, and I'm not having dinner with my family and all that stuff. And people are just so rough on themselves, rather than leaning in and understanding that life is a series of counterbalances. Look, and we're in business for ourselves, so we have the ability to do that,
Yeah, totally.
Just got to watch it. Got to pay attention.
I think that's probably a more accurate thing is life balance isn't necessarily always balanced at all times. It's kind of keeping track of what you want out of life and how you can kind of achieve that, balance, whether it might be, you might have to lean into the work a little bit harder. And I certainly at the beginning of real estate, you're really going to be in the grind phase when you're getting things rolling. Was that ever a part of your training? is that part of your coaching, the life balance, like making sure you're not, the high divorce rate, the missing kids, sporting events, like you just mentioned. Is that ever part of that conversation?
Yeah. I mean, it's stuff that I'm learning constantly. And one of the biggest things people struggle with in all industries, even people that are not business related, is kind of that time management thing is something that always pops up. And being, what are some strategies? What are some actual strategies on how to manage time better, and kind of water the grass where it needs it, and some techniques around that. And then also the emotional element of kind of just being okay with, giving yourself permission to be okay with what's happening, what's actually happening, and understanding that what you do have control over and what you don't. And one of the first things I do with people is I separate them into two aspects and say, okay, well, here's you, the business, here's you, the personal. Tell me about your business. What are the things that drive your business? And are you passing or failing in the things that drive your business? And what are you doing in your business that you don't want to do anymore? And let's get leverage there, and all that kind of stuff. And then it's funny because when you get into the personal conversation, tell me about your family, your spouse or your significant other, your kids. What do you like doing? How about your friends? And how do you get into each thing? How does this kid know that you love them? How does this one know that you love them? How does this one? You think about specific things, and are you hitting that button? And is it meaningful for them? And sometimes it's the first time people actually sit down and say, man, I never thought of that before. I never thought about that. Just if I go out there and kick a soccer ball around my kid, that it's going to be the best day of their life that they ever had. And just paying attention to those things in each of our business, because we can get so lost and kind of cluttered with all the stuff, the whirlwind, and distracted. And just kind of, a lot of people are like, like my girlfriend, she used to be kind of like anti-coaching. She's like, everyone's a coach now. Everyone's trying to help everybody else do it. Like, all the people that I know are life coach have screwed up lives. And I'm like, well, they probably got their stuff together and now they want to share it with people. But then after seeing what she does, and I brought her to stuff, she's like, man, I see how this works. And a lot of it's just kind of getting you to focus on that stuff, just your blind spots, and what you're just helping you think in a different direction. But that's kind of woven in the ongoing relationship, that's kind of woven into it. And I think that's what keeps people around more than strategy or all the other stuff. Look, you can talk about strategies and, get executing and all that stuff, but a lot of it's just kind of, hitting the reset button, refocusing, and, okay, yeah, that's right. I am on the right path. And I'm enjoying the journey along the way, and helping you enjoy it when you're going through that stretch and that pain. I think it's an important thing, and I think we all need it in our lives.
Mm-hmm. I love that life coaches are out there too, because those are questions that most people probably don't have asked of them in their normal conversations. And so love that that's a part of it too. I wanted to know, what is it that's feeling fulfilling for you right now and what you're doing? I work with, I would say, small business owners, much of them doing under $1 million in revenue. And there's not really a lot of people for those people. And I realize that. And everybody wants to work with I got friends like, work with the super rich people and make a ton of money. They'll pay you, 4 times as much for the same thing. But I'm really appreciating just helping a restaurant owner build a database, or a personal injury attorney put together a marketing plan and an image and stuff like that. It's like, it's fun to work with these different kinds of businesses where they had no clue, right? Because real estate, we've got a lot of resources at our disposal. I mean, we can go and sign up for
50 different CRMs for less than $100 a month. And we can have all this stuff available to us and all this training and all these things because we're such a big industry. But then, the small mom and pop doesn't have a lot of that stuff. And that's been real rewarding for me. And I love being back into live speaking engagements. I love Zoom stuff. It's fine. Learning in your underwear, I call it. But getting out there, like September, I had 3 conventions in September. It was great. I was in Illinois and Wisconsin and Michigan, and I love being up there when it's warm. It's good. I don't want to go into winter, but getting out there live again on the road, it's so good. And when somebody tells you, it's like, hey, they send you a message or they wait for you afterwards and they tell you, you really said this thing, man, it's come to it changed the way I think about stuff. And when you hear about something that makes a difference, and that's really super rewarding for me. And it's just being able to make an impact in that way. And I like it. I like working with the big guys, but I like working with the little guys. It's almost more, more rewarding when somebody, you help somebody that's a little kind of, kick into the next stage.
I love that. I remember reading about positive psychology, and one of the ways to get a really good rush of positive feeling, positive emotion would be to go to that person that was fundamental to you, that changed your life, and just maybe write them a letter and read it to them in person if you can. And I would imagine that would also then change that person's day, that person's month, that person's year, because that's just such a thing that people don't do very often. So I'm glad that you get to hear that back, and I can see why that would be so rewarding for you to help people and really change their lives.
Yeah, that's a cool thing, and it's so funny too when somebody reaches out to you, like on social media. I don't know if this happens to you guys. And then you're chatting with them, you're talking back to them, and they're like, "Oh, this is really you," and I'm like, no, I'm just Chris from the block. I'm not, it's oh yeah, I see your videos and I saw you from stage, and then I'm like, oh no, that's really me. I'm just really reading my stuff and getting back to my stuff. So, I'm not Tony Robbins, but it's that's what happens. It's just it's kind of a cool thing. Just people are. It's look, in a world of AI chatbots, it's nice to talk to humans sometimes, right?
It is. Yes, it is.
Totally. Chris, I do have to ask, my question that I always ask, is there a book that you found fundamental to you in development, or one that you're really enjoying right now, one that you think people should read?
Yep. There's so many. I would say like the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, kind of like the Bible of life and business. And then there were ones like the Go Giver and Strengths Finder and things like that all through the years, the Dream Manager. But right now, I just I was reading a book called The Gap in the Gain, and I think it's probably a lesser known one. And I think it's really pertinent to kind of where we're at now, the gap in the gain. It's like kind of focusing, because we come from a culture where we focus on the lack and the goals we didn't hit and the things we didn't do and don't have, rather than what we have accomplished. And it's it's all about a mindset around focusing on that gain instead of the gap and the lack that we have in our life. And I think it's kind of, we're almost, as a society, this explosion with social media and everybody in your face on look, we have all these influencers that are making millions of dollars from being on vacation all the time, and why aren't we doing that, right? So instead of appreciating what you do have, so I think I would say the gap and the gain right now is a big one. And my first book will be out soon. Is Spontaneous AF. There's some bad words in there, but it's I did a book writing challenge in November and started writing a book, and I had all this data I've been collecting for the past 8 years, and I always laugh and say, man, it only took me 8 years to write a book on spontaneity. So it's I got 106 pages or something now, just talking to publishers and figuring out what I want to do there. But that's kind of exciting, because that's it just ended up being like a non-business thing. It's almost like it's going to be applicable for everybody. And we're going to do a blog and a podcast and a clothing line and all kinds of fun stuff. So that'd be fun. And if you guys could be part of it, it's that how spontaneity kind of makes your life rich and fulfilled, just by being spontaneous and kind of planning for it and leaving space for the spontaneous to occur. And not being impulsive. I can be both of those things, but that's really what's given me kind of a fruitful life, and being able to say yes in the moment to the correct things.
Oh, I love it. That's really fun.
I'll have to look for that. Yeah,
it'll be. I'll get you guys one when it comes. I have It'll be a good time. Maybe I'll come see you in Virginia when I'm up there. Let me see where I'm going to be. I could figure out where it's going to be, and then we'll know where.
Yeah, maybe we're close by.
It's a big state. Yeah. Do you guys go to This is going to be for the realtor. It's going to be for the realtor organization there for leadership.
Oh, okay. For the state.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's a
March
course.
6th. March 6th. Here it is.
That's something that I've considered doing, going through that leadership track.
This is
association.
That's a cool thing. So did you do anything? Do you get involved with the realtor organization there at all?
Yeah. So I've just ended I was supposed to be done this year. I was the immediate past president last year, and then we had somebody quit the industry that was going to be president. So instead of rushing somebody up the leadership track, I stayed on and kind of did it another year. But yeah, that's coming to an end, but which would allow me to do that leadership course.
It's a thankless job, isn't it? So Charlottesville, this is going to be Boris Head Resort in Charlottesville, Virginia.
That's a cool place.
Oh, that's a great resort. That's about 45 minutes.
I've never been there. It's going to be. I'm going to be in St. Pete in the middle of a reggae festival. I'm going to hop on a plane to Virginia. I'm going to fly back to the reggae festival.
It's basically the same vibe.
Yeah, man. I'll have basically the same vibe. I'll have some pictures for people. It's like people always think I'm kidding when I say these things, and I'll tell people things, and they're like, oh my God, you're really I'm like, I wasn't kidding, I wasn't kidding. That's what happened, but it'll be a good time. Is that by you guys, Charlottesville?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the next big city beside. It's about a 45-minute drive.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Yeah. We go to that resort for Christmas, where we did last year, the year before.
Yeah, we did it last year. We should do it again.
They
put up lots of fun,
beautiful lights and kind of a walking trail you can go through.
Yeah. I know Richmond was beautiful. When I went there, I did a training for a group, Liz Moore and Associates.
Okay.
They had a very nice team up there, a couple offices, and they did it at this beautiful country club, man. And it was really nice, and had lunch for everybody. And it's just something they do for their agents. And I'm like, this is a cool thing. And they had a very good culture. And I like real estate companies that have really good culture. Where like the people are just nice people, and everyone likes each other, and everyone contributes and helps each other. And that's across the board. But it doesn't matter which company you're at. It matters the people that are at that company, and you can have that all wherever you are.
I 100% agree. Yeah. Where would be a good place to reach out to you? Do you have a website? Do you have a Instagram? Where are you accessible?
So I have my chrisabazis.com, which is like my link tree, so to speak. I don't use Linktree. It's in my CRM. I just built this page. It's got my Instagram, my Facebook, my LinkedIn, my YouTube, my TikTok. What else? Websites. I'm a partner in a video production company that's there too. That would be the place if anybody wants to reach out. But
we'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, and then But if it's funny because sometimes I'll be at that place in Virginia, and somebody will say that I saw you with Mattias and Erica, and they'll be like, oh, really? That's cool. So that's fun. That's happened. But I'm doing the interviewing a lot, so it's really fun to be on this side of it. It's hard for me not to get into and want to ask you guys questions. So I'm going to do a live broadcast one time. But I really appreciate what you guys are doing. So it's you get invited to a lot of these things, and sometimes they're not always. When I go through my questions, sometimes it's always this is not going to be the right thing for me. So you guys are doing good things, and I appreciate what you're doing.
Thanks so much, Chris.
Yeah, thank you for coming and talking with us.
My pleasure.
Really great conversation.
Thanks for listening to the REI Agent.
If you enjoyed this episode, hit subscribe to catch new shows every week.
Visit reiagent.com for more content.
Until next time, keep building the life you want.
All content in the show is not investment advice or mental health therapy. It is intended for entertainment purposes only.